What? Greetings, fellow Watford fans. Omar here, and it's time for another edition of the YouOrns 10-minute take on Swansea City 1, Watford 1. And this was a fair result in the end, if you really look at this in a clear-eyed way. Watford were spectacular and near flawless in the first half at the Swansea City Stadium this afternoon, in an early afternoon kickoff in South Wales, a place where Watford were not faring very well as far as a Swansea City trip was concerned. And after a very poor showing last season where they lost 1-0 at this venue, and the previous season where they were smacked around 4-0 at the very same venue, you've got to consider today's result a step up for the Golden Boys, who, as I said, were really, really good in that first half. Perhaps the best first half of an away game that they've played in quite a long time. They did everything right. The tactics were set out perfectly by the new gaffer Pezzo. The Watford lads obliged with some great defending, high line defending, some trapping and pressing, and some very good play attacking the Swansea goal. They bossed and dominated Swansea in the first half. A great goal from the likes of Iran Kunda, his first in a Watford shirt, from a spectacular free kick that was postage stamp priceless quality. One of the worldies that I've seen in recent weeks. And Watford got on the score sheet deservedly first in the 35th minute of the contest. Just before that, Luca should have had his third goal of the season. A really good ball in from Bowler on the left side. Found the head of Luca, who headed the ball into what looked like it was going to be an empty net, but up stepped the goalkeeper with a point blank range save to deny him and Watford at that point. But again, that goal from Nestori Irankunda would come just a few minutes later, and it was a deserved goal for Watford for all their efforts, frustrating the hosts, and as I said, out muscling and out physicaling the hosts as well. You knew that Swansea were going to respond, and after Watford managed to keep a clean sheet in that first half, sure enough, as night follows day, Swansea began to turn up the temperature, and they turned it up really well with these three substitutes they brought on early in the second half, and you could see the balance of power on that pitch swaying toward the home side. Watford's midfield, which had been so good in that first half, began to feel a bit more pressure on it. And while Pezzo responded with some subs, the subs themselves really didn't gain the traction that you would have hoped for. But look, the timing of the subs was understandable, at least as far as the early subs were concerned. Quadro Bar came on after in Aaron Kunda, who had been on the ground a whole lot, came off for precautionary reasons. Bar, however, did not have the desired and purposeful effect that he had in the game against Norwich a couple of weeks ago. And the other subs, perhaps you could say they were brought on a little bit late, but the bottom line is that the game was falling away from Watford in that second half, who held on until the 82nd minute when Vitoric scored for Swansea. He was really good in the game and could have scored again just moments later. I forget what his last name is. Begins with a V. But he did a really good job for Swansea. Could have scored a second for them. Came oh so close to doing that. Had he stretched out, had his foot been just maybe another couple of inches longer, he would have put that ball in the back of the net past an empty goal, because really our goalkeeper, Selvik, was nowhere to be seen. He had already made the great play that he had made before that, and the ball was just going to go into the net. But thankfully, it did not happen that way for us. It would have been a tough loss for Watford, this one, had that ball gone into the back of the net, that second one. And Watford didn't deserve that on the day. But they didn't do enough to win this game. When you're playing away from home, you have to pull out all the stops. And while some Watford supporters are voicing some concern about fitness, perhaps, I look at it a little bit differently. I don't think it was a question of fitness today. And yes, the lads were tired. It's just a question, I think, of the fact that it does take a few games to get to grips with the championship, no matter who you are, whether you've been in the championship for 5 or 10 years, or whether you are someone who's never played in the championship before. At the beginning of a brand new season, it always takes around 5, 6 games or so before you begin to see that match sharpness and that conditioning come in. That's just a natural thing. Even after 6 or 7 weeks of preseason training, nothing prepares you for the championship like an actual game of the championship does. And in this particular instance, you had one, two, this is the third championship game of the season. And the bottom line is that they're not really all into that game shape yet. And you want to call that fitness? I don't call that fitness. I just call it match sharpness. It just takes time. Every team in the world goes through this. It takes at least 4, 5, maybe even 6 games to really be at it for the full 95 minutes of a match. And this one had an extra 9 minutes on it, 9 extra minutes in this one, with all the stoppages and changes and all the rest. And the game was a game that could have gone either way in that 9 minutes of extra time. But Watford, thank goodness, held on to get a really good and hard-earned point that they did deserve in this game. Swansea did not steal anything from Watford. They thoroughly deserved the share of the points because they did give us a right go in that second half, as you knew they would. Surely their manager, Alan Sheehan, had a real go at them at half time. But Watford was spectacular in this game for the most part, especially that first half. Everybody was on the same page. Everybody did everything right. And all of these lads deserve a round of applause today for their really, really strong showing against a Swansea side that's tricky, a Swansea side that, though not physical, do have some danger men and target men, a Swansea side that have only lost once at home since Alan Sheehan took over back in February of this year. Look, this is a tremendous point for Watford, and it should not be marginalized or minimized. And even though we dropped 2 points in the 82nd minute with the goal that was not defended the way you'd like it to be, obviously, there's no shame in a 1 point takeaway from Swansea City. There is no shame in that at all. Swansea are definitely a very tricky side to deal with. They finished 11th in the championship last season, above us. And the bottom line is that Swansea's going to be a very tough test for most teams. Swansea at their place is going to be a very formidable challenge. And so to be in the lead as we were for so much of this game is a tribute to the improvement that these lads are making. And don't forget, we are far from where we need to be yet. Don't forget, we've got 4 players at least out injured: Wiley, Georgie, and Pollock, and Duoma. They're all out injured. So you got to add that to the mix. Rocco Vata is just coming back from injury. So for Watford fans who say, well, they should have put Vata on earlier, you've got to factor in Vata's still coming back from an injury, and he's going to get the minutes. He's going to get more than the minutes that he got. I'm pretty confident of that. And for those who worry about Quadro Bar not starting the games, I don't think you should be worrying about that. Squadro Bar is a special player, and he's going to be just fine. He really will. Even though he didn't play particularly well today, he didn't have the impact he wanted, he's going to be fine. Iran Kunda is a player you have to start. He's obviously red hot, 19 years of age, ready for the fight, uh, took to the championship like a duck takes to water. I mean, you can't argue with Iran Kunda starting these games. And the other thing that I want to say is that I predicted a 1-1 draw in the Orns Friday Focus yesterday. I predicted a 1-1 because I knew this game was not going to be easy for Watford. I know Swansea is very hard to break down and beat at home. And of course, I was loving the idea. I was loving that Watford were up 1-0, and I was hoping that my prediction would be wrong. Unfortunately, the prediction came true. But in a way, it's exactly the game the way it should have been, the way I thought it would be, given that Swansea were going to always play better than they did in that first half, which they were really poor in because we made them poor. But Swansea definitely have a bit about them. And considering we came away empty from Swansea twice in the games we played there last season and the season before, especially the season before last when we got beat 4-0, this is a marked improvement with what is largely a brand new Watford side when you consider all the new faces that we saw in the starting lineup today. This has been the YouOrns 10-minute take.